Hello, Noah Kelper here, talking on the Xprize, Elon Musk's competition to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere in large quantities. My previous little post, I talked about the air volume that you would have to circulate through the system in order to remove the 1 gigaton a year. I'm still working on the system of a hosing system that goes down to a certain depth that's pressurized by a gravity and buoyancy pump from a ship. I'm sort of looking at, I've been looking at large tanker or gas tanker boats. I think if you got, I used one of those that you could modify to have some systems, wind power, electrical, solar power, generating systems on board. The engines would most likely still run off natural gas or oils. It looks like they have a lot of specifications on those right now for tankers and large ships. And then with the with all the systems being on a ship, so you'd have to have either devices that leaned over the side of the ship with anchors, or built into the ship with anchors that anchored the ship to or weighed the ship down, and used the buoyancy of the ship and these anchors to create a pumping action, to pump hundreds of meters of air through these hoses. I've been looking at hoses. It looks like fire hoses have the ability to go up to 110 bar pressure. So fire hoses would, if you could connect fire hoses systems that you drop down into the ocean to the depths that you wanted to pump the air through, and then with a chain of linking tubes or pipes that were kept under the pressure of the ocean at the certain heights, separated the nitrogen and the oxygen and the CO2, and most likely before the air was sucked in, there'd be a system to remove any moisture from the air, so that you didn't have H2O in the system, you just had the gases. And then the gases would be released upwards. I don't know if you'd want to capture them. For this system, I said not capturing them, just letting them go back into the atmosphere, but capturing the liquid CO2. And then the systems could be developed for, on the same ships, to deposit the CO2 into even deeper into the ocean, or into locations that it was necessary. Of course, all this liquid CO2 being able to be pumped back into reservoirs on the ship for storage and transportation. Then you could now take it to the locations you wanted to, or wherever you wanted to take it, and pump it into either holding tanks or holding locations, or for further processing. I think that is sort of the, this is at least for the air. I've been doing some drawings, but I have on what the system might look like in a little bit closer detail, but I'm not really satisfied with them very much. This was my first little mock-up drawing, but the more I think about it, the more practical. This is less practical, I think this idea is, but so far I've got air intake, I've got like a buoyancy valve that would use water. This one was like a separate, like self-anchored thing that dropped down, and then this is a very crude idea of getting to the CO2 liquid location of pressure in the sea, and then letting the gas just head straight up, but the liquid CO2, now being heavier, would go down, and you could just have large storage bags, some kind of massive bag balloon system, or just being pumped back up. The pressure would, this is a one-way valve, then this is under high pressure. You could have more pressure to suck this, a pump sucking this water back up into a reservoir ship, of course keeping it under the pressure, so that it stays in a liquid form. Whether you raise the pressure to get the most density, or you just what's it called, leave it same pressure. It's at 0 degrees, it's like 60-70 bar. I wrote some silly things down here. What did I say? Oh, that was the ship I was looking at, Magnus effect. Oh, that was those wind generators I saw on the ship. Yeah. And then you could take into consideration the temperature as well, temperature of the water. And then, yeah, phase diagrams to find the temperature, pressure, location to get the CO2, but also separate the hydrogen and oxygen, or sorry, the nitrogen and oxygen from the gas. This was supposed to be like a floating thing, but I think if you had a big ship, you would need a big ship, and these things would have to be, that came into the ocean or were part of the ship, would have to be huge, taking in hundreds of meters, hundreds of metric meters, or cubic meters of air per breath, because this would also have to be high pressure to pressurize the system, because if you're at a lot of pressure under here, you have to force through that pressure. Yeah, so that's what I got so far. And I know Elon Musk was saying that the idea is worthless unless you put it in, unless you actually do it. Ideas are one in a million, and production is what matters. But I totally disagree with that, because unless the idea has been put out there and continually processed through, like, the more minds around an idea, the more chance it's going to happen. Because he also likes to say money is just information, and that reminds me that the real financial, the real value in a system is communication, And the real power is in communication, and acceptance of that idea or of communication. But so that's where I'm at so far. Keep plugging away and putting up little videos on this carbon dioxide extraction thing. Bye.